Welcome to another conversation. Domestic and family violence workers are among the nation's most essential workers in terms of saving and rebuilding the lives of women and children. And yet they are also among the most precariously undervalued, and there are not enough of them. While the work can be very rewarding, it can also carry unique risks, such as physical risk from perpetrators and the emotional risk of trauma or re-traumatization. Many women workers are themselves victim survivors. Today we talk about this very issue: burnout, vicarious trauma, and compassion fatigue, and how self-care is an important part of managing the emotional risk that is inherent in such vital work. When we work with traumatized people, we can inadvertently slip into focusing on their distress at the expense of our own well-being. But this is not helpful to us or the people we are supporting. People at risk of this include carers, teachers, child protection and caseworkers, counsellors, anyone who is listening to traumatic histories of others or having to empathise all the time, such as refugee support workers and volunteers. We need to care for ourselves as well as the people we are helping. A big part of this is understanding the emotional risks of the work we do and putting some strategies into place to mitigate them.
Self-Care for Advocates is a Facebook group that is for anti-violence advocates and helping professionals. We've been around for 6.5 years, and we started with just a handful of anti-violence folk, and now we are close to 4,000 members. We're worldwide. We have members in 28 countries. Just phenomenal that it started as a little tiny group in Alabama, and it's just grown and grown and grown. But it's been a game changer for a lot of us, and it's a garden we all tend, and it's just very exciting to have it. One of the things that we've done recently, besides just having people meet up at conferences, and our advocates sometimes travel and they see each other, and they do field trips and all kinds of other fun stuff, is that we just recently had our very first online conference. And that was a spectacular event. We were graciously sponsored by RAFT, which is an organization that RAFT stands for Resilience for Advocates Through Foundational Training. And their website is raftcares.org, and they do work with domestic and sexual violence advocates and helping them with compassion fatigue. And they were so gracious, and they sponsored the event, and we have just grown in leaps and bounds because of that, and also have had a great success with reaching a whole new group of advocates that we hadn't seen before. So we're just still buzzing. It's like it was Christmas. Absolutely do think there's a lack of education when it comes to these issues. I think a lot of times it all gets kind of put into one big basket, and where like there's a burnout sticker on it, and that's it. That we don't necessarily get to tease out the differences and to see how those differences can be better mitigated. To me, burnout and compassion fatigue and vicarious trauma are all sister issues, and they're all the emotional hazards that come with the work that first responders and domestic violence advocates, sexual assault advocates, child advocates, social workers, and even medical teams, and even law enforcement all see, because we're just not given enough opportunity. I truly believe that, and I think that we're better. I think we've come a long way from hiding behind, like oh, I don't want anybody to know. Or something's wrong with me. But if I tell anyone, then they won't let me continue to do my job. We've come a long way from that, but there's still a huge lack of education. I feel very strongly that we need to have a standardized practice for, at the very least, for domestic violence and sexual assault advocates, and I would call for other forms of helping professionals as well, that it's a standardized practice to not only educate about self-care, and I'll get to more about that in a second, but also to be talking about those emotional hazards. And I feel very, very strongly that it's not just the responsibility of the individual advocate themselves, but it's also the organization that could be potentially putting that advocate in the harm's way by asking them to expose themselves to trauma day in and day out, and then not preparing them, and then not providing them emotional support. That's not fair, and it's certainly, I feel like it's not ethical. And so we need to do more, and we can do more. It's absolutely possible. I'll be the first to say that advocates, most of us are terrible at self-care. Social workers, my degrees are in social work, not great at the self-care. Though it does take practice, and it does take coming back to it over a period of time. So for me, when I first started, just would ignore it, or try to put it out of my mind, of that, well, in a way of minimizing it. Well, it's you had a tough day, but you're not spending the night in the shelter tonight. Or you had a tough day, but you didn't have anyone to hit you today. And just, it was constant minimizing and constant ignoring it, of like, well, it's bad, but it's fine. That's just comes with the territory. It's no big deal. And, or you're working 10, 12, 14-hour days, sometimes longer, taking care of other people, ignoring your own family and your own life. And it's like, well, if I can just help one more person, that will tip the scale, and then I can call it done. But then there was always one more person, and another person, and another person. So it was very, very difficult to have to switch gears. And it really wasn't until I went to the doctor, and I was in just a state of just, two things happened. I went to the doctor, and I was just like, I think I have ADD. I can't concentrate. I came armed with all of the quizzes. I had printed them all out, and I had them, and I was like, look, I have failed all the quizzes. And he was like, okay, but I can't take the word of the quiz. I need to talk to you more about this. And he's like, well, tell me about how you're sleeping. And I was like, I don't sleep. Like, what? I was like, sleep? It was like 4 hours a day, not enough sleep. He's like, and tell me about your home life. And I, in the midst of a divorce, and I had a small baby. And he was like, so you're up all the time, and when you're not up, you don't have a calm place at home. I'm like, no. And he's like, okay. And what's going on at work? It's like, well, I'm on call, and I'm the only person for, at the time, 7 counties who could go to the hospital for forensic exams, and was being called 24 hours a day, all the time, and the only person. And he's like, that's not great. And it's like, okay. And then he went, how much coffee do you drink? And I was like, at this point, I was like, oh, that's not good. I was like, what would be the worst thing? And I'll subtract 1 from that. It was like, he's like, so you don't drink water, do you? Like, no. So he's like, I can't, you got to get your life under control before I can help you. And you have to subtract some of this. You can't subtract the baby, but you have to subtract some of this, and you have got to get some rest, and you've got to do something, because you're on your way to not ADD, you're on your way to a heart attack. Like, you have to slow down. And I really was mad about that. But then the more I was like, who has time? Like, I've got to take care of this. But I was like, you know what? If I don't do something and switch this gear, truly, I won't be able to continue doing this work. So I slowly but surely, started, giving up the caffeine, which was terrible. So it was not my favorite, working on the home life. So it was more stable, and then eventually more kind and loving, and the home that I wanted, working on, the work stuff, being able to eventually transition into a new job, and to be able to have other people who could take, call and go, and and eventually all of those different pieces fell into place, and I started exploring self-care. So that was really helpful. Discovered things, would try something and just to see if I liked it. So tried lots of different things. Discovered I hate knitting. Knitting is not great for me. Do not want to crochet. That does not, I love it when other people get, like, if that's their thing, that is awesome. It is not my thing. And coloring makes me irrationally angry. Like, when people get their coloring books out and go to town, I get so jealous because it makes me irrationally angry to have to do it. So it wasn't great. But I discovered that yoga was my thing, and I love it. And I discovered that talking with other advocates and having accountability partners, with people who were outside of my profession, who I could send a text to, who would hold me accountable, but didn't have the same kind of work that I did, was very helpful. So having those different pieces in place certainly was really huge. And then, also having a partner who just truly cares about me and makes sure that that I feel respected and have the care and attention, so I can focus on some of the scary stuff outside. He takes care of the scary stuff inside. So it's just that it's a partnership, and that's really been a huge change for me too. So yeah, so I think that it's like I said, self-care is a practice, and it takes a long time to figure out what works best for you. But I challenge anyone to keep trying it, because you'll get there and figure it out. I feel like if I am not practicing what I preach and I'm encouraging others, but if I can't encourage myself to take that same amount of care, then I am not being truthful with them, and that doesn't feel good. So I try to have that accountability with them, and I try to be honest and let them know, like, there are days where I'll just write, I'm not sleeping very well, or I haven't been doing all the things that I want to do, and or haven't I'm having a sad day, or I'm having a hard day today. The depression that can come so often with our work is a little too close. The sad is too close today. But what I find, though, is allowing that vulnerability is very helpful, and it models the type of behavior I wish I had seen from my supervisors and my mentors in the past, of just being able to go, just see them have that moment of just humanity too. So that's one part of our group that I think is wonderful. And then the other part about our group that is really, really helpful is that the members can ask questions about self-care. They can share their experience. If something has happened at work, or they're really struggling with something, whether that's like workplace bullying, or maybe they had a terrible case, or maybe they're just heartbroken over not being able to help someone. Maybe they're having their own trauma issues that they're struggling with, and having them be able to say, this is what's happening to me right now. I'm not sure what to do. Can someone offer me some suggestions for self-care, what works for them? And seeing the group kind of descend and like almost like give them like this virtual hug and be so loving and kind is so great. And then also seeing people go, right on, I totally get I can see it. I can empathize with what you're saying. I've had similar experiences, and this is what I did, and this is what's helpful, is good. We have a sibling group that we use for more technical questions when it comes to the work, where someone wants to, hey, I'm having trouble with a grant, or hey, what should I do about this situation, or how do I get through to this client? We try to keep the self-care for advocates space specific to self-care, because we know there are other places out there, in the ether that can help with the technical, and not necessarily as much space for the self-care. So we try to tend it in that capacity as well. And I love that you say going in and taking a shower. I think that's such having a ritual can just be so perfect. And I've been there myself with the going in and just taking a really long shower and just needing just to be calm, or a bath, and just let it go for a little while. We say all the time with advocacy work, no day is the same. You have some similarities, but literally no day is the same. Particularly with COVID right now, things are absolutely not the same as they were 6 months ago. Our numbers where I'm at are particularly low for our sexual assault cases. And that to me is more stressful and more concerning than anything, because I know that sexual assault isn't stopping. I just know that people might be afraid to go to the hospitals right now, and they might be afraid to report right now. So my brain is constantly still going. And that's nonstop. So any day could be very different. So, before COVID even, we would have days where we would, have people coming in nonstop. Our office is one of the few offices that the organization has that's open to the public. So, people would come in, they might come in off the street just for some support and some help. They might be coming in for a different resource. They might be coming in to drop off donations. They might even just be coming in to just eat their lunch and say hi. So you just, constant there. And then as a supervisor and the director of the program, I had responsibility to be supervising my staff, my team, the advocates, the volunteer advocates, the interns, making sure that they're being taken care of and that their work is being accomplished. And so that was, constant with the doors and people coming in, and, it's like, hey, can I talk to you for a second? Or, hey, I've got this. So, there's that, but then also being responsible to my executive director to making sure that we have those things taken care of. And, and I spend a lot of time doing committee work with our sexual assault response team and the coordinated community response team that we're a part of, and my work with the state coalition. So it's just lots of different pieces that are always moving. So no day is exactly the same, but that feeling where it creeps up on you, that exhaustion, or I think that sometimes that anger that can come out with being exposed to so much nonstop. I think that's familiar. That having those moments where it's just like, boy, I'm feeling really angry, and why is that? It's like, well, is it because we couldn't help somebody? Is it because that there's organizational trauma that we're not dealing with? Is it because I'm just overtired and overstimulated and need to go have some lunch, and I haven't left my office in the last 8 hours? Like, what's going on? So I encourage folks to really do their best to be mindful, but I encourage supervisors to be more than just trauma informed, to be vicarious trauma informed, so that they can be picking up and paying attention to their team. And I know if I'm having a hard time, and there's a lot going on, that my team is too. So I need to be checking in, or at least paying attention to them. And I also need to be honest with them when I'm having that moment where it's like, hey, I have enough energy to deal with 5 minutes of whatever you're about to say. Or if you can give me 30 minutes and let me have a cup of tea, then I can be with you for an hour. Like what level can I give you right now? So finding those healthy boundaries can be a real benefit too.